So, you want to own a ghost kitchen. No dining room, no hostess stand, no servers, no bathrooms, no 40-seat lease on a corner where the rent climbs every year whether anybody walks in or not. Just a kitchen, somewhere in a warehouse district, behind a steel door with no sign on it, with a rack of tablets bolted to the wall and orders printing all night from 6 different restaurant brands that all happen to be you. You saw the pitch. Open for $30,000 instead of $1 million. Skip the build-out. Skip the furniture. Skip the front of house entirely. Let the app bring the customers. Here is what the pitch leaves out. The app is not bringing you customers. The app is renting you access to customers it owns, at a price it sets, on terms it can change without asking you, and it takes as much as 30 cents out of every dollar you will ever earn before you buy a single onion. You are not opening a restaurant. You are becoming a supplier to a marketplace that can delete you. The cheapest way into this business right now is renting time in a shared commercial kitchen at $15 to $50 an hour, with total startup costs as low as $20,000. The most expensive version was a company called Cloud Kitchens, run by the man who founded Uber, which raised roughly $850 million in late 2021 at a valuation of $15 billion. By September 2023, the Financial Times was reporting it was closing warehouses, cutting staff, and running its buildings at around 50% occupancy. And between those two numbers sits an American industry worth about $2.9 billion, divided among roughly 7,600 businesses, which shrank 5.2% in 2024, while the number of operators kept climbing. More companies, less money each. There is one line of arithmetic underneath all of it, and almost nobody says it out loud before you sign anything. Call it the 100% problem. A restaurant with a dining room pays the delivery commission on delivery orders only. That might be a quarter of its business. The rest walks through the door, sits down, and pays full price with nobody standing in the middle. A ghost kitchen has no door. Every dollar it will ever earn arrives through an app that charges 15 to 30%. That is not a channel cost you manage. It is a permanent tax on the entire company. So today we're going to run it. What it actually costs to open a ghost kitchen in America, what the delivery platforms take before you see a cent, how many orders a day you need just to break even, what happened to the billion-dollar companies that tried to industrialize this, why one of the biggest virtual restaurant brands in the country ended in federal court, and why the single most valuable thing a restaurant sells is the one thing a ghost kitchen decided it didn't need. Let's start with the part that's actually cheap. There are 3 ways to do this, and they get lumped together constantly, which is a large part of why nobody can agree on what this business costs. The first is renting hours in a commissary, a licensed commercial kitchen, already built, already inspected, already equipped, that rents itself out by the hour to caterers, food trucks, meal prep companies, and you. $15 to $50 an hour depending on the city, or $1,500 to $4,000 a month for a dedicated block of time. Startup costs land between $20,000 and $40,000 because you're buying almost no equipment. The trade-off is the schedule. If you want the ovens at 6 on a Saturday morning and somebody else booked them in January, you don't get the ovens. The second is a dedicated suite inside a purpose-built facility. This is what the big companies were selling. A private bay in a building full of private bays with shared loading docks, shared dish pits, shared cold storage, and a driver pickup area out front. $1,500 to $5,000 a month in New York, Los Angeles, or Chicago. $700 to $2,000 in a smaller market. The companies selling these suites advertise that you can be operating for as little as $30,000. The third is building your own. You lease a second-generation restaurant space, meaning real estate that already has a hood, a grease trap, and gas service, and you finish it yourself. Commercial kitchen construction runs $300 to $800 per square foot. Realistic small standalone delivery kitchen lands around $200,000 all in. On top of whichever one you pick, there is a stack of paperwork that nobody films for the thumbnail. You need a food facility permit from your local health department. $200 to $800, and 4 to 8 weeks of waiting. In a shared kitchen, you'll also need a commissary agreement letter from the facility operator because the health department wants to know exactly which licensed kitchen your food comes out of. You need a business license, an entity, and commercial general liability insurance with product liability specifically because you are shipping cooked food to strangers you will never meet. Budget $2,000 to $5,000 a year. You need to register your brand name as a fictitious business name. If you plan to run 4 brands out of 1 kitchen, in most jurisdictions that is 4 registrations, and we're coming back to that because it turns out to be the most quietly consequential rule in this entire industry. Then you need platform approval. Your license and health permit go to DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub, and onboarding takes another 1 to 2 weeks after the documents land. Add it up. The commissary route puts you in business for $20,000 to $40,000. The dedicated suite lands somewhere between $30,000 and $60,000. The standalone build is $200,000. Against a full-service restaurant, where the average opening runs close to $1 million, those numbers look like a rounding error. That is the bait, and it is a very good one because those numbers are real. Now here is the hook. If you're finding this useful, subscribe. We break down the actual economics of a different business every week, and this one gets ugly fast because none of those startup figures are what kills people. What kills people is the second number, and the second number is a percentage. DoorDash publishes 3 merchant plans for delivery orders at 15%, 25%, and 30%. Uber Eats publishes 20, 25, and 30, with an additional 5% on some orders for merchants on the middle plan. The cheapest tier is not charity. It buys you the least visibility in the app, which for a business with no sign and no street frontage is the entire ballgame. A brick-and-mortar restaurant looks at those rates and shrugs because it's paying them on one slice of the business. You are paying them on all of it. Run 1 order. A customer buys $30 of food. The platform takes 25%, so $7.50 leaves immediately. Food cost on a well-designed delivery menu runs 28 to 32%. Call it $9. Packaging, the clamshell and the bag and the tamper seal, and the sauce cups, runs $1 to $2 per order. And it's a real line item new operators consistently forget. Labor runs 20 to 25% of revenue. By the time that $30 order clears, you have somewhere between $2 and $4 left before you've paid a single dollar of rent, which is why average order value decides whether your business exists at all. Below a $20 average ticket, the commission structure simply eats you. The workable zone starts around 30 to 35. That one fact rewrites your entire menu. Combo heavy, family portioned, bundled, upsold. If your concept is a $9 taco plate, the math does not work at any volume, ever. Then there's the order floor, your rent, your utilities, your insurance, your software subscriptions, and at least 1 person standing in that kitchen during service hours are fixed. They cost the same whether you do 6 orders or 60. Most operators need somewhere between 25 and 50 orders a day just to cover that base, and the more common guidance is 50 and up before you see actual profit. 50 orders a day, every day, from a brand that has no sign, no window, no regulars, no walk-ins, and nobody who has ever heard of it. Which brings us to the cost that nobody puts in a spreadsheet because it isn't a dollar figure at all. You don't own the customer. Think about what a normal restaurant is buying when it signs an expensive lease on a busy corner. It is buying discovery. 10,000 cars a day see the sign. Somebody walks past on a Friday night and remembers it on Tuesday. The rent is high because the rent is the marketing budget, and it's a marketing budget you own permanently because the building doesn't change its algorithm. A ghost kitchen deliberately buys the cheapest possible real estate, which means it buys 0 discovery, which means all of it has to be rented from the app. And inside that app, you are 1 tile in an infinite scroll, sorted by a ranking system you cannot see, scored partly on a star rating that punishes you for a driver's mistake as readily as your own. So you buy sponsored placement. Another cut, on top of the commission, out of the same order. You are now paying the platform to find the customer, paying it to complete the sale, and paying it to deliver. And when that customer wants that food again, they open the app, not your website. The relationship belongs to the marketplace. You are the kitchen. Then there's geography, which almost everybody gets wrong. A sit-down restaurant might pull from 5 to 7 miles out. A delivery kitchen doesn't get that. Radius on the major platforms is set dynamically, based on demand and how many drivers are nearby, and third-party estimates put a typical figure around 5 miles. Plenty of experienced operators plan closer to 3 because quality falls apart with drive time, and a cold order is a 1-star review. 3 miles instead of 6 is not half the market. Area scales with the square of the radius. It's roughly a quarter of the market. So every household inside that tight circle has to carry the entire business. And whether your orders actually get picked up on time depends on how many delivery drivers happen to hang around your neighborhood at 7 on a Friday, which is a variable with no public data behind it and no way to check before you sign. Most operators find out after the lease is executed. So let's talk about what this costs every month, forever, whether you're busy or not. The rent doesn't care about your order volume. The insurance doesn't care. The software stack, the tablet consolidator, the point of sale, the inventory system, all of it renews monthly. But the commission is different, and this is the part that makes ghost kitchens structurally strange. Your worst fixed cost scales perfectly with your success. Every additional dollar of revenue you generate hands 15 to 30 cents of that dollar to a company you do not control. You cannot grow out of it. You cannot negotiate it away at your size. Volume does not fix it because volume increases it, and the platform can change the deal. In March 2023, Uber Eats announced it was cleaning up virtual brands on its marketplace. By July of that year, it had removed 8,000 of them. Its policy now requires a virtual brand's menu to differ from the parent restaurant and from any other brand in the same kitchen by roughly half its items, requires photographs of 5 unique menu items, and removes brands averaging below 4.3 stars, which is a higher bar than physical restaurants have to clear. DoorDash published parallel requirements, also at 50% menu differentiation between co-located brands. Read that again as a business owner. A private company reviewed its marketplace and deleted 8,000 businesses. That is not a cost. That is a category of risk that does not exist in any other kind of restaurant. You can pass every health inspection in the county, pay every bill on time, and still lose your entire storefront because your rating drifted from 4.4 to 4.2 over a bad month with slow drivers. So why did anyone believe this was the future? Because of a single number, and the number was misunderstood almost immediately. In November 2019, the research firm Euromonitor International put out a figure describing ghost kitchens as a $1 trillion global opportunity by 2030. Read carefully, it was a ceiling. A total addressable estimate of how much food service could theoretically move through delivery-supplied kitchens over a decade, across takeaway, drive-through, dine-in, and packaged food. It got reported everywhere as the size of the market. Capital heard $1 trillion. Then the pandemic hit, dining rooms closed, delivery volume exploded, and for about 18 months, it looked like the forecast was landing early. One attorney who has worked these cases put it precisely when he told Restaurant Dive that the pandemic handed the business model a false positive. Demand spiked because customers had no alternative. Investors read a temporary condition as a permanent shift. And then everybody built. Here's what got built and what happened to it. Start with the one that looked like it won. In 2018, the man who founded Uber and had been forced out of it the year before spent about $150 million of his own money to take control of a company called City Storage Systems. The thesis was pure real estate arbitrage. Buy distressed commercial property, parking structures, dead restaurants, low-value industrial buildings, and convert it into something producing more revenue per square foot. That company became Cloud Kitchens, valued at $5 billion in 2019. In late 2021, it raised roughly $850 million more at $15 billion. Then the false positive expired. By late 2023, the Financial Times reported the company was shutting warehouses and cutting staff, with occupancy across its buildings sitting around 50%. Reporting from that period described whole facilities placed into what the company internally called hibernation, and locations in several American cities going dark. At an all-hands, employees were shown a prototype of a bowl-filling robot. on the theory that if you removed the labor entirely, the math might finally close. The most successful company in the category responded to its own unit economics by trying to eliminate the humans from the kitchen. Now the one that was destroyed. Reef Technology raised enormous money, turning parking lots into kitchen pods. In January 2022, it paused operations at 95 underperforming kitchens, roughly a third of its footprint. By May, it had cut about 750 jobs. The reason that matters is who was standing next to them. In 2021, Wendy's announced it would open as many as 700 locations with Reef by 2025. 700. Then it trimmed the target to 150. Then, in the second quarter of 2023, it closed its remaining roughly 15 American Reef units and walked away entirely. A national chain with 60 years of operational experience, effectively unlimited capital, and one of the most recognized names in American fast food ran the delivery-only playbook and quit. Kitchen United closed all 8 of its locations inside Kroger supermarkets in November 2023, roughly 16 months after Kroger joined a $100 million funding round. In February 2024, it shut its remaining physical sites and pivoted to licensing software. A month later, a hospitality investor acquired the leftovers and folded them together with 2 other collapsed virtual brand companies into a single entity. Asked about what he had just bought, his assessment was that if you are a delivery-only business, fundamentally, it is not a profitable endeavor. That is the man who purchased the wreckage, describing the wreckage. And then there's the one that had everything the others lacked, and it still ended in court. In 2020, a company called Virtual Dining Concepts partnered with the biggest creator on YouTube to launch a delivery-only burger brand. The model didn't involve building anything. Existing restaurants across the country signed up to cook the menu in their own kitchens during their slow hours and listed on the apps under the celebrity name, handing a cut of the revenue back. It scaled to roughly 1,700 locations. It had, on paper, the one thing no ghost kitchen can buy: instant, enormous free demand from an audience of well over 100 million people. And the food came out inconsistent. Complaints piled up. Photographs of undercooked meat, cold fries, unbranded packaging. Because the brand had no kitchen of its own, it had no way to enforce what came out of anyone else's. Quality control was a contract clause applied to 1,700 independently operated kitchens with different equipment, different staff, and no shared incentive beyond a revenue split. On July 31, 2023, the creator's company sued in federal court in New York, seeking the right to shut the brand down, alleging the partner had let quality collapse and damaged his reputation, and that despite the brand generating millions, he had received no profit share since inception and couldn't access the books. 1 week later, Virtual Dining Concepts countersued in state court for damages it described as being in the 9-figure range, arguing he had disparaged the brand publicly after failing to renegotiate for a larger stake. In May 2024, the court dismissed several of those counterclaims, and an appellate panel affirmed that dismissal the following year. The lesson is not that the celebrity was careless or the operator dishonest. The lesson is structural, and it applies to everyone watching who is considering this business. A virtual brand's only asset is trust in a name attached to food. The brand owner never sees, cooked by people the brand owner does not employ, delivered by drivers the brand owner does not control, in a package that arrives 40 minutes later at a temperature nobody measured. The brand is the whole company, and the brand is the part that breaks first. Now, the part of this industry that most operators would rather not discuss, and that regulators are still working out how to handle. The business model has a transparency problem, and it isn't an accident. It's the mechanism. In 2023, an investigative team at ABC7 in Chicago cross-referenced delivery app addresses against city records and identified more than 300 ghost kitchen brands operating in the Chicago area. The vast majority of those brand names did not appear anywhere in Chicago Public Health Department food inspection records. The physical restaurants housing them were inspected. The names customers were actually ordering from were not. Some addresses had 1 or 2 brands attached, some had 10 or 15. One taqueria owner walked reporters through his tablet rack and showed them about 20 different brand names, all cooking out of the same kitchen, on the same line, by the same crew. That operator's inspections were clean, and he told reporters exactly which restaurant name to look up. But the city's Consumer Protection Department confirmed that licensed restaurants are supposed to register those brand names as doing business as filings, and the investigation found that most simply don't. Chicago's health department said the consequence plainly: it cannot track a ghost kitchen name unless that name is on record with the city. So a customer opens an app at 9 at night, orders from a brand with a photograph of a burger and a 4.5 rating, and has no practical way to determine which physical kitchen is cooking it, what that kitchen's inspection history looks like, or where to report it if they get sick. The chief executive of the food safety nonprofit Stop Foodborne Illness put the concern to reporters directly. "We don't know what food safety practices are happening in those establishments." New York officials raised the sharper version of this years ago. A facility with a poor inspection grade could effectively bury it by operating under names that aren't in the grading system at all. Not through fraud, through paperwork nobody is checking. None of this means ghost kitchens are unsafe as a category. Well-run facilities hold commissary licenses, and their tenants hold their own retail food permits, and both get inspected exactly like a brick and mortar. The point is narrower and more useful. The entire consumer-facing premise of a virtual brand depends on the customer believing they're ordering from a restaurant, not from an existing restaurant's spare capacity under a different name. And the industry knows the difference matters, which is precisely why the platform started forcing menu differentiation, unique photographs, and a higher star floor. They weren't protecting operators. They were protecting the credibility of the marketplace, because once the customer figures out that the app is full of names that don't correspond to places, the app is worth less. All right, let's run the actual numbers. These are models, not promises, and every one of them moves with your city, your menu, and your rent. But the shape holds. Scenario 1. You rent a dedicated suite for $3,000 a month. Utilities, $700. Software stack and tablets, $200. Insurance, $300. Your fixed base is $4,200 a month before anybody cooks anything. You hit 50 orders a day, every day at a $28 average ticket. That's 1,500 orders a month and $42,000 in gross revenue. Platform commission at 25% takes $10,500. Food cost at 30% takes $12,600. Packaging at $1.25 per order takes $1,875. Labor at 25% takes $10,500, and that assumes you are working the line yourself and only paying 2 other people. Total costs, $39,675. Your net is roughly $2,300 a month. Call it $28,000 a year for full-time work, at a margin of about 5.5%. You are hitting the volume target the industry says you need, and you're earning less than the general manager of the restaurant you would have opened instead. Scenario 2. Everything identical except you do 25 orders a day instead of 50. Revenue drops to $21,000 a month. Commission, food, and packaging all drop with it. But labor doesn't have, because you still need a body in that kitchen across lunch and dinner, regardless of whether the tickets are printing. And your rent, insurance, and software don't move at all. You lose roughly $3,000 to $4,000 a month. That is not a slow start. That is a business burning your savings at $40,000 a year while looking from the outside like it's working. Orders are coming in. The kitchen is busy. Every number on the platform dashboard is going up. This is the median case, and it is the reason people list barely used kitchen equipment 11 months after they signed the lease. Scenario 3. You run 3 brands out of the same kitchen. Same rent, same crew, same equipment, 3 storefronts on the app. 90 orders a day at a $26 average ticket puts you around $70,000 a month gross. After commission, food, packaging, a slightly larger crew, and fixed costs, you net somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,500 a month, around $78,000 a year. That works, and it comes with the cost of running 3 menus that must differ from each other by roughly half their items to stay compliant, 3 separate rating profiles, and 3 chances to fall below 4.3 stars and get delisted. Scenario 4 is the only one that actually changes the shape of the business, and it has almost nothing to do with cooking. You build direct ordering. your own site, your own checkout, your own delivery arrangement, and you route customers to it. Every order that moves off the marketplace keeps 15 to 30% that was previously leaving the building. Shift 20% of Scenario 1's volume to direct, and you keep an extra $2,100 a month, which nearly doubles the profit of the entire operation without cooking one additional plate. Which tells you what this job actually is. The kitchen is not the business. The kitchen is the cost center. The business is customer acquisition, retention, and margin defense against a platform whose interests are structurally opposed to yours. So here's the uncomfortable summary. A ghost kitchen pays the highest cost in food service on 100% of its revenue, forever, with no channel that escapes it. It has no discovery of its own and must rent every customer it ever serves. It operates in roughly a quarter of the trade area a normal restaurant enjoys. Its storefront can be removed by a private company enforcing a rating threshold higher than the one physical restaurants face. Its brand is its only asset, and its brand is produced by conditions it cannot fully control. And the American industry it belongs to shrank while adding operators, which is the specific signature of a market where more people are arriving to split less money. The billion-dollar version of this idea has already been tested at scale by companies with more capital than any of us will ever see, and it closed the warehouses. And roughly 7,600 businesses in this country are doing it anyway. Some of them are doing it well. Notice what the survivors have in common. They tend to be operators who already had a real restaurant and a real customer base, using a delivery kitchen to extend coverage into a neighborhood they already understood. The delivery-only kitchen worked as one channel inside a business. It did not work as the whole business. Even the company most often called the winner of this category got there by buying a meal kit service and a delivery platform and opening physical food halls people can actually walk into. Which brings it back around to the thing everybody thought was overhead. The dining room was never a cost the industry had failed to eliminate. The dining room was the product. It's the sign that tells you the place exists. It's the health grade in the window. It's the reason you trust a plate of food handed to you by a stranger. Restaurants were never only selling calories, and the moment you take away the room, you find out how much of the price was the room. So yes, you can do this. $20,000 to $60,000 gets you a licensed kitchen, a menu, and a listing. Plus 25 cents of every dollar to a company that owns your customers. Plus 50 orders a day from a brand nobody has heard of. Plus a star rating that can end you. Plus one night at 11 o'clock when the tablets go quiet and you realize the only people on earth who know your restaurant exists are the ones currently scrolling past it. That's what a kitchen with no door actually costs. Which raises the next question. If you can run an entire food business with no storefront and no staff, what happens when you remove the kitchen too? That's the next video. What it actually costs to own a vending machine route.